Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dr. Ahmad, Director of CEDS, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas Padjadjaran. Dr. Firman Witular, Fellow of NU Indonesia Project. Our speakers and audiences, good morning. We are very pleased to welcoming you to Executive Launch Universitas Padjadjaran Bandung, to our annual event Bulletin Indonesian Economic Studies, Economic Dialogue and Forum, Reducing Agricultural Income Vulnerabilities through Agroforestry Training, Evidence from a Randomized Field Experiment in Indonesia. Please give applause. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Georgie, and I will guide you for next 3 hours in this event. And ladies and gentlemen, for the opening of this event, we are inviting you to stand up to singing national anthem of Indonesia Raya. Please to listen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen about introduction of NU Indonesia project from Dr. Firman Witular. Dr. Firman Witular, time is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Firman Witular from the NU Indonesia Project. It's always nice to come to CEDS to meet teachers, to meet my colleagues and friends here, and also as for Indonesia Project, this BIES Dialogue and Forum. This is the 7th time we co-host this event, and hopefully we will continue. Co-hosting this event in the future. And each year, the idea is each year we select one of the recent articles that just appeared in BIES, and we invite the author to come and to present their research in this forum and dialogue in Bandung, and usually in a number of cities that started in Bandung and elsewhere. And this year we're very lucky that we can invite Dr. Pratiwi, who is based in Finland, Turku, and to present her work that appeared in the recent BIES on Agroforestry. And I think if you have looked at the papers, it is something probably of interest now because her study is using RCP. We all know that as recently as there's a lot of attention on RCP after the latest Nobel Prize. So please feel free to ask anything about this. Okay, although I know a lot of people here are already familiar with Indonesia project, I'm going to give a very brief introduction of who you are, what you do, and also about BIES. We are an international center of research in graduate training and on the Economic Society in Indonesia, based at NU. And we've been there since 1965. So our objectives is to continue stronger research-based development policy in Indonesia, and through various channels by conducting research, disseminating research as we are doing now, and carrying out capacity building with our friends, colleagues, and networks in Indonesia and Australia. And we have two strands of activities, one of which is comes with our responsibility as academics at NU is to conduct research and capacity building, our own research, supervising PhD students, conducting training, and we do a number of visiting fellowship, grant for research. And the other set of activities that we're doing is to disseminate research, which is what BIES Dialogue and Forum is one of the most important events. So this is what we have been doing in the past 5 years. Our networks, our activities, with whom we conduct collaboration and also network and also public dissemination events like such as this. We have two, on the dissemination strand, we have two primary output, one of which is BIES, the Bulletin of Indonesian Economic Studies, which also has been published in 1965. It's the leading journal on Indonesia's economy and society. I'm going to talk a little bit more about BIES, but before that, the other primary output is on the dissemination strand is the Indonesia update, which this year has been conducted on September 7 on from stagnation to regression on the state of Indonesian democracy after 20 years. So BIES, a little bit about BIES. This is, I think we can be proud to say that it is the leading academic journal on the Indonesian economy and related fields. And even though it covers not only economics, but it's also the intersection of economics, development, and area studies. A lot of political science studies, for example, are published here. We have 3 issues per year, all of them with high quality research by both Indonesian and foreigners. And think so. Why do you want to submit to BIES? And I think these numbers show why. Because in recent years, it's now the world's top 15 area studies journal by impact factor, top 20% in the development studies category, and all in the higher tier of development and area studies. And as a comparison, in terms of impact factor and sectors, we also rank quite high. In the recent year, it's even better than the Journal of Development Studies and the World Bank. And again, so if we receive submission from topics not only on economics, but various areas of policies, public policy, political science. But the focus must always be in Indonesia, and that's why it's called BIES. And as so most of the articles contributing to our impact factor. In fact, some of them are not really economics, what we consider economics paper. For example, the first one is, and the third one here is clearly a political science paper. So, and this is just a metric of how many downloads we have that's from our article in the last year in 2018. So, that's all I have to say. So please, and I know I don't have to say this as CEDS. A lot of the oral of colleagues in UNPAD already been publishing in CEDS for a while now. So okay, so yeah, and but it's just I just want to convey that recently it's become even we try to keep the quality even higher, so the acceptance rate is now about 11%, and more than 30% submissions were rejected because they were 50% gets rejected even before we could send it to the review. Okay, that's all for me on the introduction of the initial project and let's go to the main event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Firman. Now we are going to listen welcoming speech from Director of CEDS, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Padjadjaran, for Dr. Adiatma. Please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Good morning, everyone. And first of all, I would like to extend my warm welcome to friends from the Indonesia project. Yeah, and like Pak Firman said, it's the 7th time. Yeah, this event has been conducted in UNPAD, and also Ibu Ayu from all the way from Finland to Bandung. Yeah, so this is quite a journey. And we're always pleased to host this event because we believe, our students, our lecturer can learn a lot from your research, especially Pak Firman mentioned about the randomized control trial, which is something that's still relatively new. Yeah. So of course, in my field in health economics, health is pretty much deal with our city all the time. Yeah? But then in economics, it's a tough job. Yeah. So I'm really pleased that you're willing to share the topic in our event, and hopefully. If students or lecturers have questions, they can confirm it with you, because I believe you are the expert. Of course, Pak Firman will be also the expert, but this session is yours, so you'll be responsible for responding to the questions. But on behalf of the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business, and of course CEDS, unfortunately our Dean cannot attend this event because most of us are in Purwakarta City, and we are having an annual workshop over there. So we apologize that they cannot join the session. But I hope this event will, run smoothly nevertheless. And I hope we can hold the same event again next year and the year after. Yeah. So we'll just be brief. And again, thank you for the friends from the Indonesia project. And of course, thank you for our moderator and discussants as well, Bu Pipit, Pak Ahmad and Pak Ronnie, for allocating your time to attend this event. And I hope we will have a fruitful discussion. Yeah, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Adiatma. Ladies and gentlemen, we will go to our main agenda today, and I want to introduce our moderator, Ibu Pipit Fitrian. Ibu Pipit Fitrian currently is lecturer and researcher at Department of Economics, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Padjadjaran. She finished her bachelor and master studies at Universitas Padjadjaran, and she also experienced in several non-formal training, which one of them from Turku University, Japan, with specialization in development economics, labor economics, education, health, and public finance. She was experienced in many research teams with Bappenas, city government, and several NGO abroad. And now, please welcome our moderator, Ibu Pipit Fitrian.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here in the BIES Economic Forum Dialogue. Once again, warm welcome for you all here, Firman, Ibu Lydia, Ibu Ayu, and also the discussants, Ronnie, Natawidjaja, and Ahmad Komarulzaman, also here for the next 2 hours, I will be a moderator here, and let me introduce our special person from Turku University, Ibu Ayu. Ibu Ayu is a postdoctoral researcher at Turku University. And she has obtained her doctoral degree from University of Tokyo, Ibu Ayu. And today she will present a paper on reducing income vulnerabilities through agroforestry training, evidence from a randomized field experience in Indonesia. So, warm welcome for Ibu Ayu. Please, may I invite Ibu Ayu here? And we have two discussants here, Bapak Dr. Ronnie Natawidjaja and Bapak Dr. Ahmad Komarulzaman. Pak Ronnie Natawidjaja is well-known researcher in Unpad and also in Indonesia for his work for Agroforestry and so on, and he also currently serves as a member of Dewan Ketahanan Pangan, Pak Dewan Ketahanan Pangan. And Pak Ronnie is one of the most productive author, Pak Ronnie, several publication, Pak Ronnie, has been published during the last 5 years, Pak Ronnie, and also collaborates with one of the researcher from CEDS. Pak Ronnie, please welcome to the youngster here, Pak Ahmad Komarulzaman. He obtained his PhD from Senin University and the master from the Wageningen University. His works on the water sanitation and also household microdata, Pak Ahmad. Currently, he is a deputy director of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development School Center in Universitas Padjadjaran. Welcome for Pak Ahmad. Pak Ahmad, silakan. Okay, Ibu Ayu, we have 15 minutes for your presentation, and I believe this presentation will give us insight, because I think randomized field experiment is maybe rare in Indonesia, especially in Padjadjaran, in Universitas Padjadjaran. So I believe that this study will benefit us much in terms of method and also the result. So Ibu Ayu, it's your time for presentation.
wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera. I'm actually very pleased to be here. This is my first time to Padjadjaran University. And I mean, it's really worth it to came all the way from Finland to be here. So, and I'm actually very thankful for Pak Ronnie and Pak Ahmad for having time to actually read the paper and even sharing some thought to it. So I'm actually very happy also for the audience. Thank you so much for coming today. So I'm actually I will try to explain one of our results of our project. In short, we did the agricultural training in Lampung province in Indonesia, and training to the farmers actually examine quite many things, like from the sustainable agricultural technology, agroforestry, social network, rural institutions, and many things. But today I'm going to explain one of the results regarding the effects on agroforestry, and not only agroforestry, but also we extend the analysis into the sort of what kind of crops that they cultivated, and then to what extent they profited from the practice, and finally whether that would actually help to smoothing their income from the farming activities. So yeah. Right, so I think if you're in farming students, you might also feel that Indonesia is actually taking this structural transformation, right? From agricultural community to the more into manufacturing side. And I think it's right. Last year, the share of agriculture to the GDP is almost 15%, which is low compared to industry for I think 35% and services for 40%. But I would argue that even though share is only 15%, the agriculture still provide most employment to Indonesian people, as 40% of this labor force is coming from the agriculture. So, but definitely we'll be having the problems for the agricultural practice, and also for the people as a whole, because of course poverty is still an issue. Most low-income people working in agriculture, they live in rural area, and they're hampered by many things to advance their farming practices, right? But at the same time, we also have these sustainability problems, because there are many land use changes from forests to residentials, and also for conversion from forestry into the agriculture. So I think we're facing two issues at the same time. So first is the poverty issues, and the second one is the sustainability issues. And at the same time, we're also having this food security. Population growth in Indonesia is quite striking. So we have to be able to have more food for everyone. So I think in this case, our training result to agroforestry. So the idea, if you're not coming from agriculture, which I also come from agriculture, but I think agroforestry as farming practices, they're very suitable for the poor people, right? The idea is that because in agroforestry, you just combine different crops at the same time, and then of course we have some matching with the ecology and then with the economic value of crops. But the good thing about it is that it will require the low input. Basically, if you combine different things, you will not be focused on the fertilizers or a very intensive input. You can also just put the people will just let it grow for some time, and then they could reap. And even though we have many definitions of agroforestry, I think the simple one is just to combine the crops and then the trees at the same time, so that will constitute the agroforestry practices. And then, of course, now we know that agroforestry is good, and then we're trying to see what do we do about it, right? We have to promote this practice to the farmers, right? In order for them to sustain the livelihood, and then to keep the economic benefit at the same time, and also to let the environment sustain. So in the past, globally, not only in Indonesia, there are past intervention in agroforestry. I think the easiest one is the technical training. So the idea is that when you give training to the farmers, as in you tell the farmers to have which kind of crops which suits their farm, and then it could for instance if you can ask them to combine trees and other main cash crop at the same time, and then the training would actually show to improve, we can encourage them to improve the economic well-being by doing this. But the second intervention, also there are some financial aid. So when farmers adopting some crops, and then we give subsidy in terms of the seeds or many things. But in Indonesia itself, there are in the past there are also like some programs related to agroforestry, which are funded by the government and even externally. For instance, like in Yogyakarta, so there is a program to integrate timber in the crops and also to integrate fruit into the practices, and also rubber in Kalimantan and Sumatera. But then we criticize that, of course, like these programs, while it's good, mostly they are targeting the land rehabilitation and generating, if it's a timber, right, you can also only reap the benefit later on, like 20 to 30 years. So it's like actually a very long investment. We can't see the benefits right away, so it's like a long-term investment. And I think this is also the past program in Indonesia. There's a little understanding on how this practice actually suit the farmers and how are the mechanisms to let them into adopting this, right? Because otherwise, if we don't understand about the cost-benefit function of this practice to the farmers, of course, if it's against the profit maximization strategy of the poor farmers, then I think it's not going to work, right? So I think our contribution is that we try to see the linkage between economic, social, and ecological using the RCT. And another contribution is that, of course, like we learned that agroforestry is very suitable for the poor, but definitely the programs are targeting like general farmers. So here we want to see the impact between the lower and the higher income farmers. So what is RCT? I think most people here in Unpad, I think you know already about RCT, but for those not coming from economics background, so yeah, basically like you have those randomized population here, right? And then you divide into the treatment group and the control group, but you define this is a very randomly chosen. And then for the chosen group, you did some intervention for the treatment group, and for the control group, you didn't do anything. And then if there was any differences between the group with intervention versus group who didn't receive intervention, and then we can attribute the results to the impact of the program. So it's like we try to minimize the bias or on the uncertainty, or we're trying to keep the randomness out of it and reducing the selection bias. So why we choose the Lampung province? So why we choose Lampung? I think, of course, like we have so many commodities to focus on, right? But in this case, I want to focus on coffee and cocoa. It's like Indonesia is a major player for coffee and cocoa. It's currently number 3 for both commodities. And Lampung is actually one of the most coffee producing and cocoa producing area in Indonesia. So we got to both things at the same time. And how we do randomization? First, we choose there are 12 districts in Lampung, but we choose one of the most producing district, and then we choose the sub-district. And from here, we randomly choose the unit of analysis as a farming group. So we choose 16 out of 36. So in total, we have 312, which is like 80% of the response rate. And we did the research for 3 years. So first we have the baseline, and after the baseline, we did intervention. But before, because we were running university, so we have to do the randomization 2 months before, and then we did the impact evaluation and first year and second year. This is why we choose the 2 years, because I think this is my proxy for the short-term benefit. We want to see the short-term impact, and this is like the medium-term impact after 2 years. So this is the way we randomize. The extension agents actually help with the randomization. Some farmers got, when they assigned to the training, some are happy, some are sad, but that's life. So what we did is like, of course, training is training, right? I mean, it's so traditional, but then we tried to introduce some heterogeneity and some differences in the training. What we did is that we conducted the training in 3 places. So all the farmers live in Tanggamus, right? But half of them are assigned to the training program, And from half of these people, we actually divide into 3 training groups. So the first training group just do it in their hometown. And the second training group, they have to travel all the way to here, South Lampung. And the third group, they have to travel all the way down to this Java Island. And because the farmers here, I think even like 30% of them doesn't have the ID card, so they don't really go anywhere. So this is like an intervention to. We try to see the, training is training, right? If you get knowledge, then you got knowledge. But practicing your knowledge is something else, right? It is different from getting knowledge and then you don't practice. But so this intervention actually means to obtain that, to change your behavior. And this is the location of heterogeneity. So it not only represents the distance, but also the other cultural component, like it's more advanced, and then when you go further, all the extensive practice is more advanced, and also they have more access to market, capital, and many things which farmers in here doesn't have. So you want to see whether witnessing something else that are more noble and more newer, more modern, whether it would modernize their expected returns of doing something. So what we do for the training? Of course, we teach them many things. Sort of combination of the crops or benefits of doing something. So we combine the in-class lecture and the pilot farm visit. First, they learn the theory, and second, they practice in the pilot farm. So all of these three locations, they are similar. They are same. Trainers are the same. So we have to keep the environment homogeneous for all the groups. But then for those trained in other locations, like in South Lampung and in Ciamis, we actually introduce them to touristy places and networking with other successful farmers in the area. So even though knowledge level is the same, we expect the personal experience and exposure will be different, which we think that it might revise the expected returns and then change the behavior, right? So this is the information we collected. This is part of the bigger project. So we did the host characteristics, farm income, technologies, input, and many things. And we actually published some of these results already. So for location impact, it's almost published, but not yet. So, and we also examine like if you have different social network, how are the knowledge during the training. So whether if you have people, you have friends from the same group, friends from the same community, whether you will increase more if you have more of this friend. And also we also examine the interplay of the ICT and infrastructure on access to market, and also effects of connection with traders on climate change strategy in another paper. But this study focuses on the forestry effects and farm income. For the rest of the study, we can discuss it later if we have time. So when we talk about the agroforestry, what kind of things we examine? There are, of course, like the easiest is the crop combination, right? But we have two types of combination. First is just by category, and the second one is by diversity. So we have listed almost 100 or more than 100 crop lists. And then if farmers cultivate some of this crop, and then they have to take which one do they cultivate it. And for this, right, and then the classification is based on the farmers' consultation with the farmers. So for instance, if farmers think that tomato is a fruit, and then we, like in here, like they think tomato is a vegetable, then we put it as a vegetable, right? But I think some people maybe think that this is a fruit, then they put fruit. But here, like we first we go by function, and second we go by simply counting the diversity. And apart from this adoption, right, on different crop types, we also examine what are their perception after they practicing cultivating more than one crop. And then we have the environmental benefits and economic benefits. Of course, even though we have like 10 of this list, we only reported those who are significant, which is this conservation, food income, fuel wood, and medicine purposes. So yeah, for the rest that are not significant, we didn't report. And this is the income distribution in the baseline. As you can see, it's skewed to the left, and then we have to deal with, if we want to see the high income and the low income farmers, right? It will be misleading if we put it by the mean value, which is like here. So we put it the median value. Those, we define poor farmers as those with the farm income below the median, and high income farmers as those which farm income is higher than the median. And then to make things easy, we have 5 hypotheses. First, of course, if you are trained, you will have the higher crop diversification index. You plant more after you return from the training. And the second one, of course, in the training you're exposed to knowledge, right? You are more aware of the benefits. So the reasons of having more diversification is because you have better awareness of these benefits. And the third one, we assume that after people are returning from their training, they will talk to their friends. So there will be spillover because those people whom the participants talk to after they return, they will get also the benefit even though they don't go to the training. And then also like in the rural area, right? When the formal institutions like I think almost non-existent, farmers learn from their friends or neighbor. So when the neighbor practicing something in the farm, and then the farmers will see, and then they will sort of imitating the neighbors. So we assume that after returning from training, these participants will extend the depth and size of the network. So on the assumption that after they return, they would like to tell people what are they learning, and then how are they experienced. That's why they will have larger network. And the last one, we try to see the effect of this training on income smoothing. So the idea is that if you have more than one crop, right? When they have a crop failure during the climate variability, then when you have put more eggs in more baskets, and then you will tend to be safer. You will reduce the probability of having crop failure because you have so many like baskets. So that's the idea. So dependent variables is like index, perception, spillover, social networks, and income smoothing. And then you would like to see like how do we examine? Of course, like even though we randomize all these training participants, right? And we really try to randomize all these things, but still we learned that only 80% of the selected farmers actually went to the training program. So 20% didn't come. And then and so we think that even with the random invitation, individuals alone decide whether they want to come or not, right? And this is actually maybe they are more motivated. Maybe those who went for the training, maybe they are more hardworking or they're motivated to begin with, right? And this motivation might affect training and also affecting adoption of agroforestry practices at the same time. So it might be biased. And then like we're trying to control for this by having instrumental variable. So for those who are trained, we will those who come for the training, we will instrument it with randomized lottery or randomized invitation because it's exogenous, right? It's something that it won't be related to the adoption or training at the same time. So this is our variable of interest, training and post training times post-training, so this is the coefficient we're looking at, and also training, dummy, post-training dummy, and then the below median income dummy. So this is done because we want to see how this affected, how the poor people actually have a different take-up from the higher income farmers when it comes to adoption. So we see like, we try to do the balance test, and then I think it's all balanced, randomization works well at the baseline. And so we try to see now the effects of training on agroforestry indexes, right? We have the index by category and biodiversity. And we can see here that it's almost no effect. When you see like farmers in general, even after the training, they didn't decide to add some crops by category or by diversity, so it has no effect. So, and if you stop here, you would think that, okay, training doesn't work, so we shouldn't do it, right? But then when we dissect into higher income and low income farmers, you would see that for the low income farmers, they actually, even though it's small, like 0.135, even though it's small, we will see that they're actually increasing the diversity of the crops, not by category, not by function, but by diversity, by simply the number of crops. And then we want to explain why this is so, right? Why this is happening. So I think the general farmers, they diversify even less after the training. After the training, you realize that, okay, the profit maximization strategy that are rational for me is that I have to specialize on the main cash crop. So let's say I have cocoa and coffee, And then instead of like adding some other spices or many things, right? I think it's better to, they think it's better to, they have a larger farmland to begin with, right? So they think that it's better to have more coffee plants rather than like having smaller plants. So, and then the poor people, right? Even though they want to focus on the cash crops, focus on the maintain, I think it's the maintenance is too high and too costly for them. For instance, like they have to provide inputs, fertilizers, you know, and maintenance, labor, many things, so they can't afford to do this. So they just resort to the subsistence farming here. So I think the poor behaves differently because of capital constraint, in which our first hypothesis is actually only partially supported. And yeah, we have to be cautious with that because only the poor people increase the diversity. And then when we see that, of course, some people, the general participant doesn't really adopt more crops, right? So we want to see whether they really understand the benefits of doing it. And apparently they did. So we, as you can see here, general participants, they tend to agree that, so they got the benefit from the conservation, so the environmental aspects, at the same time with the economical benefits. So they understand the benefit of having more, but they don't, they don't practice. As opposed to when we look at this, when we dissect by income, we would see that the poor people, right? They mentioned that they increase the, they agree that they got medication or they resort to the herbs when doing agroforestry. Means that maybe those plants that they cultivated in the farm were actually sort of like herbs, because we can assume that they don't have access to the healthcare institutions, then they might resort to these herbs. So even though both poor people and the rich, like the higher income farmers, even though they think they benefit somehow from agroforestry, but the focus are rather different. The environmental benefit are more into the higher income, and then the medication benefit is for the poor farmers. But even so, our second hypothesis is supported. And then we see the spillover. The idea is that, if you can, the thing is that if you, why are we doing this, right? I think because when you learn that if you send only one or two people for training, and then when they return, they will sort of spread all the information to the non-participants, then you would think that, okay, maybe we don't have to send everyone out, right? Because they will do some spillover anyway. But then, and then it's actually, we found that in the data as well. So for each participants they have, as a context, so in the village or in the survey area, so even for each person they contacted, the probability of, or not the probability, but the index will increase by 0.35%, which is small. But if you times like, 30 people that you know, then you might have a bigger effect, right? So even though the effect is small, but still I think it's significant. Which might explain why the program's impact, our program impact is not significant. Maybe because non-participants actually increase their diversification too. So if both groups increase at the same time, then maybe the effect of the training is like, it doesn't really show, because apparently non-participants that are the comparable group are increasing their diversity too. And then after that, then we were actually puzzled also, like, so what kind of crops that they cultivate and that they left, right? So it happened that for here, the poor, the low income people, they tend to, get income from these legume crops. So it's significant legume crops, but so and then the rich people they tend to diversify on the spice crops for the year. So I think on crop production, of course, as a whole, for this income, the training negatively affect the higher income farmers' yield, but not the low income. So we think that even though the higher income people will resort to the spice crops or to the main cash crops, of course within 2 years you didn't see it yet, right? So there is a dip in their income before. I think they will see the more of the result in 3 years, but not in the short term. So that's why compared to the rich people, the poor people actually increase the the income. And then if we want to see the network or empowerment, right, the social network, we see that only the poor people actually increase the contact with extension officials. So before, maybe they are not confident enough to contact the extension officials, but after the training, they tend to increase the probability of knowing extension officials. And they also talk more, like they have 1.6 more people to talk with after they went to the training. So it's explained like maybe why the poor people keep the diversity. It's because they talk with more people and then they understand more benefit and then they feel empowered. But the rich actually talk less with the network. This is because they value more information from the training. So if you value something, you tend to give it. So and that's why the for hypothesis is only partially supported. And then the last part, we see the income of variation, coefficient of variation. Of course, like there are different things on computing the income smoothing, right? And this is a very simple one, which I don't really, I am not really satisfied with what we can do. So for each additional commodity farm, the income variation amongst farmers decreases. So in the short term, it helps farmers actually to stabilize the farm income to some extent. So it supported the hypothesis 5. So the story thus far is that training. If you are a government and then you want to see the programs, right? Of course, like if you see the general participants, then you will actually say that okay, this doesn't work. We shouldn't do it anymore. It's agroforestry training because it doesn't really impact the farmers. But then when you split it into the low and higher income, actually the results are diverging. So I think the message is that of course. We have some limitation. This is only the farm income, right? We didn't really take account of the non-farm income. And then I think the gender discussion is also missing from this discussion. We only treat farmers as a very masculine type of work, which we ask to the household head, which is actually our mistake, and we won't do it again in the future. And then we also acknowledge limitation of COP. And for the policy implication, I think this is also replicable to other government's program. When you see something, you can't take it from the face value because you have to see by subgroups if there are variation to it, and then you can say something with the results are mixed or or even it deals different things. And also the second one, like when you talk about farmers, the way they think rational decision is to maximize profit, and apparently the poor and the rich, they have different way of maximizing the profit. So this is why the article actually explained. And for the next, I think we have to increase the access to credits and market to the poor, and then affirmative actions targeting the poor. And as you can see, that training, I think in the past, like the government only selected 1 or 2 popular people to go for training, right? So you don't really see how, And now when we randomize it, we know that the social empowerment is more prevalent, more salient for the poor. So yeah, we have to really strengthen our institution. So I think I talked so long already. So if you have any question, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Ayu, for comprehensive study, So because it is not only highlight the training, also figure out the social aspect or behavioral aspect of the farmers. Because despite we have a declining trend of agricultural labor absorption, it is still important for us to maintain that their income or their welfare increasing. Maybe one of them is by the presence of training. And I think this study has answered the importance of training for the farmer. And now we have first 15 minutes discussion, because I believe that our 2 discussant has also valuable things to share. First of all, I would like to ask Ronnie to present the best one already for the Ibu Ayu studies. Enggak, Pak. Ada slide mungkin.
Silakan.
diskusi aja karena kameranya tidak bergerak.
Oh, gitu. Nggak otomatis ngikutin ya?
Tadi yang ditonton dibunuhin.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih. Pertama-tama terima kasih dan saya merasa honored to be invited as a discussion. It's very interesting and also very good forum. I have a brief reading on the papers, very interesting. I'm not quite understand on the randomized methodology, it's very new, but I would like to learn too. In my student time, it was popular as only heard as experimental economics, but haven't actually involved or any involvement in that time. So my comment quite general. Okay, tolong itu jadi. Okay. My first question is on the methodology. How you categorize the income group, low and high? Is it as agriculture economists usually when it's things very tight and budget is limited, the proxy for income is the land ownership. But then it seems to go into directly measure the income itself. Is it true? And then my following question is that how do you define the high income farmer? Is it still fall under smallholder categories? If you see the BPS average of land ownership of farmers, smallholder farmers is 0.3. So is it also related to that? I'm kind of curious what's the split between the two, because and the third one, a little bit related but something else, because farmers usually build their livelihood on multiple land access. So if you define low income farmers, my hypothesis may be that agroforestry land is the only land that he controls. The rest is kind of laborers or penggarap, they call it penggarap, shareholders. Then their attitude toward the agroforestry land could be different from the high income group, which maybe the agroforestry land is what, second or third land. So that function as the saving, and they are more depending on the income on the other land other than the agroforestry land. So that could explain why the high income people not responding to the agroforestry training, which to my knowledge in the field, usually the high income one have more knowledge on different things because of their high income, they are from more educated, and also they have wider network in the society usually. So my guess is they are not responding because the agroforestry land is not important contributing to their income. because they have another land which is down below, which is not under the, because you define agroforestry land, it's the land under the control of the forestry ministry. That's become the community agroforestry, something like that. I mean, it's part of the agroforestry forestry land that given out to the community to cultivate and to use as a social function for the community in the border of forestry and agricultural land, in assuming that then they will care more on the forestry part in terms of the forestry function itself, rather than because previously most of the agroforestry, the forestry land that in the border with the agricultural land cultivated with vegetable, which is basically contradict to the function of the forestry, because the vegetable need the open space. So anytime the forestry Ministry of Forestry give them the tree to be planted out between their vegetable crop, never succeeded to become really grow, because for some reason they don't really care about the tree part, because it's also affected their vegetable land negatively. Because when the vegetable under the shade, then it's not good. But it worked very well with the coffee, because coffee is actually different with other crop. It's good under the shade. So between the coffee and the tree crop, it's benefit mutualism. The tree crop and the coffee and also cocoa, same. They are need each other to be there. So it's a positive to the agroforestry effect. But then, of course, when the tree crop and also the coffee crop is not that old yet, because your duration is 3 years. It takes coffee 4 years to be fruiting, and tree crop will be more than that. So in between, usually farmers plant other crop as a cover crop. So then the tendency we'll see more diversifying behavior in the early stage of the farmers doing the agroforestry, but will be less after the crop going taller, because there's no more shade left, like nothing else grows, only left with the tree crop and also the coffee crop, which is good. I mean, because both are tree crops, good for the forestry. I think the most important part for my comment on this one is how you consider the dependency of the farmers' income from the agroforestry land. I think that will affect their behavior of their decision in what they do on the land itself. Because I didn't see any measurement what percentage of income depending on those lands. Because farmers usually have several plots of land, even though it's not really very big, but different land is also function as diversity. that diversity doesn't have to be in one plot. Diversity can be also in work in different plot. I don't think you measure that because you measure with okay. Next, and yeah, it wasn't clear to me the definition of hometown related to the network and things, because there's something that several studies show that really connected to the understanding of the farmers about the agroecologies, connected to the social capital on the indigenous knowledge of the farmers. Say, some people interpreted that the farmers in Tasik area doing the organic farming as a way to gain high profit, which is not true. Because for the farmers in Tasik, they're doing the organic farming, it's because of their belief. The farmers should take care of the land and its ecology. So when Bank Indonesia, BRI coming to give them incentive to get higher profit, said, you are in different perspective. That's not us, that's somebody else. So what I mean is that maybe if you see the origin of ethnic of the people, because the Lampung is quite heterogeneous. People coming there as immigrant, a transmigrant from different part of Indonesia. Some Japanese, some Sudanese, and also others. Maybe they have those perceived knowledge based on their ethnic group. If you follow that discussion on how the indigenous knowledge affects their behavior. And that is why the training doesn't mean too much for them, because they know already part of their knowledge on that. You should check the origin of the ethnic. That's all my comments. The result, sorry. The result heavily dependent on the information crop diversity indices. That was my impression on the reading. So diversity indices play a very important role for you in concluding the result. I should caution more carefully on the diversity indices, because I did use the same indices for different use, and sometimes it's not really consistent. We can see the diversity indices as a progress, because meaning that farmers more commercial, more focused on certain crop that become their source of income, that considered as good practice. But on the other hand, in terms of vulnerability, I agree that the diversity indices could translate into the interpretation. It's safer, because then it's less vulnerable, and also in terms of ecology, it's more compatible, supporting the diversity of the ecology. So then I actually suggest to do more profiling on the distribution of the indices between group and also between other factors that characterize the participant. Because I hypothesize there is some connected relation those indices with one of the factors that related to the participants' characteristic. Yeah, like I explained. I think that's my point. Hopefully, it will contribute for the refinement of knowledge. I think it's an interesting subject to explore too, and could be further. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Ronnie. I think, yeah, very interesting, yeah, to have the expert here, so we learn a lot about the, yeah, maybe because Pak Ronnie has a very, yeah, well, field experiment, yeah, Pak Ronnie, yeah, also, yeah. So, but I think, yeah, baik Ibu Ayu, there are several points, yeah, highlighted by Pak Ronnie, classifying income groups, also the definition of agroforestry land, and also how to about the possibility to differ the ethnicity. Maybe you have any comment about Pak Ronnie.
Thank you very much for all the comments. I think that's a very nice and definitely things that I've missed for the most part of the research. So I'm actually very thankful for that. And probably this would actually leading to something leading to something more after. I mean, we can actually explore the possibilities for this. But I'll try to respond to each of your comments. First, about the classification of high and low income group, we actually have the information on the land size. We have information on the own land, on plot, and the cultivated plot. So we know that who are these farmers who are contract farmers, or those who rent from others, or those who have cultivated for themselves. But then from that, the average people having, the average land is like 2 hectares on average. So, but then I would have difficulty to, if we're talking about the land tenure, then it would be something else. So, especially for this paper, I'll focus on the farm income. So, based on all this, income getting even for the agriculture, and then also for dairy and for honey and for agricultural products, and then I will construct the the diagram and then see like what are the median, and actually the median is like 10 million rupiah per year, right? Yeah, per year. So for those who have less than that, then it's like lower income. For those who have higher, then it's higher income. And so that's how I classify. And for the high income farmers, of course, like it's still, I think maybe if we do definition by BIES or others, they might still, depending on the farmer, depending on the income, they are actually, these are smallholders, right? So higher income farmers on the smallholders group. Yeah, and I agree that, for the land tenure, this is actually a very difficult thing. Of course, like we went there, we tried to find out whether this land is like given by the government or part of these forestry programs, but we didn't know the information about that. So we just assumed like whether they cultivate or whether they own. So perhaps if they cultivate, maybe that's what part they maybe rent from some other farmers, right? Or they might actually it was the plot from the government, from the forestry programs, but. Yeah, that's actually the shortcoming of this research. We don't know because it's not reported. They might not report the real thing, right? I mean, like they might be given by the government, but they think it's their own. So, yeah, and I think that will lead to further research about land tenure. And I also agree about perennial crops. So I think for coffee and cocoa, if you want to cultivate this, the first thing is to prepare the shade trees. So it's not the other way around. So first you see, so it was actually you see the high trees and then you plant coffee. Not like you plant coffee and then you put the trees. So I agree that there might be variation on this, which I really don't, I don't it wasn't reflected, and I'm not sure how actually, but I think that was one of the shortcomings. And also the plot. We actually have a plot, like plot information. So, but of course in here, like we combine with some all of the plot, but we can also do analysis on the plot level. And I think if we do analysis on the plot level, I think most farmers, they have 2 or 3 different plots in different farms. So I think the results might be different, I think. And we can also incorporate the land tenure. So in the future, I might want to look at all these plot level. I can consult with partner. So about hometown, so it's actually farmers living in there based on the statistical data, district level data, so they're there. And apparently, of course, like we know some transmigration programs, and even though we recorded all the ethnicity of the farmers, we found that I think almost 80% are Japanese people. Yeah, so Japanese and Muslims. So we don't really, even though we try to do the fixed effects of this, right? And then they just multilinear because everyone is
from the village, yeah.
Right.
Second from Japanese name.
Is there Balinese? Is there Balinese?
No.
Balinese, I think, is very strong in Lampung.
Yeah. There are Sudanese. There are most Sumendo people, Lampung people from the north. Yeah. And also you're right that some of the farmers actually may have known the information before. So if that's the case, this is maybe strengthening their belief. And also we have also the by ethnicity, so we can see, like, of course, I'm not sure how's the result, but we can see the ethnic variation and adoption at the village level or community level, and I think that would be interesting. And actually, that was our next project, to see it in the village level. So thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Ayu. And next, maybe langsung aja ke Pak Ahmad yang second discussion. Maybe we have another 15 minutes before we go to session question again.
Thank you very much. So here I would like to discuss the paper that was written by Pratiwi. The architect is here right now. So I enjoyed reading this paper. It is well written. I think it's quite. Even though it is, for me, I think it's quite complex, and it's very comprehensive paper. So I think I would like to say again about the paper itself. So the paper aims to investigate the training effects on the adoption and perceived benefit of agroforestry practices. And then the novelty of this, the highlight of this paper is on the effect between poor and non-poor farmers. And then for me, I think it is a good angle because I'm here as, also from the SDG Center, and now it's in the SDGs era. Usually we only think the impact of training for farmers. So whether it is have a good impact or not, so that's it. But we didn't know whether it is have an impact for the poor or for the non-poor, or for the urban area, in the rural area, or disability people, or for, there are a lot of category for women, for men, and then there are a lot of category there. So here, this paper tries to capture this, especially for the poor and non-poor. So it is quite inclusive, especially in the SDGs era. So you can also have another point of view from this SDGs things. So no one left behind. That's one of the principles from the SDGs. So you try to explore if it is, I think the conclusion is that the effect of training is better for the poor people, for poor farmers, right? So I think it's good point. So it's it support the SDGs. And again, as I said before, it is a quite complex and comprehensive studies. And in terms of methodology, if you see here, you managed to interview 312 farmers from 16 farmer groups and then doing She did three training sites, so in Tanggamus, in Java, and in another side, in Lampung, and also in Garut and Ciamis. Well, Garut is my hometown, so it's. And as I think echoing from Ronnie, it's good if we in the paper you said that you are expecting there will be a different effect for these three sites, but at the end you said that you have limited data to reveal the effect. So I think it's a pity to not knowing the effect, because in the beginning you already anticipate the effect, but at the end you didn't reveal the effect. So I think it's a pity. Because if you in the beginning you already anticipated, so you have to prepare. So how many observation you need, so for so on. So yeah, I think it's and then you did 3 years measurements, and then this RCT is quite difficult, I think, especially in economics. We rarely use this technique. We usually use the secondary data, so it's primary data, so, and then RCT is also different, and then it costs a lot of money, of course. And you also did the ID, difference, and also instrumental variables, and also another heavy econometrics thing. And then you also, in terms of aspect of being investigated, so I think it's to have some words there. So it's Agroforestry index. We also have the production, also have income, and several other aspects that is you try to include in the analysis. So it's quite complex, and it takes time to read and understand the paper itself. You did the research in Tanggamus, and then you said it is the top producing area of coffee and cacao in Lampung province. And then because it is the top producer, so I expect there are a lot of programs there implemented by the government, both in the local government or the province government, or even from the national government. So I'm thinking if there are already some programs before, but you already captured it from the baseline data. But if there are some program during the 2012 until 2014 that is not randomly affected the participants of your study, then I think it will have also some implication. It could also be the reason why you have limited effect between the participant and the non-participant farmers. I think that it could be, because it could. These programs would affect the farmers' knowledge, the farmers' network, and at the end will affect the farmers' the study, the result of the study. And then here you also select 16 farmers groups. It was randomly selected from 312 farmers. The control group is 156, and also the intervention 156, also both random. But it also I think similar with the Baronis. Here it is how the distribution of farmers belong to these farmer groups. It could be that this 156 it belongs to only 8 farmer groups, and then the other 8 farmer groups. So it's not really well distributed. So I would like to know how is because it was not written in the paper. So I would like to know how it is distributed among the farmer groups, because I think it could also have some impact on the result. Again, this you have 3 years measurements, but this question is already answered in your PowerPoint, but it's not written in the paper. Yes, maybe it could be I missed to read the explanation. So you said that it was you did the base analysis in 2012, but you didn't mention the demand based on what I read. And then you did the invitation training in February 2013. And then when is the training held? There is no information in the paper, but it's already in the slides in April. Right? And then you did 2 post-program data in September 2013 and 2014. And then in the paper you also write that there were crop diseases, high rain intensity, and strong wind during the post-evaluation. So during the 2013 and 2014, I think, yeah, after the training. Does it affect all the farmers in the study? So because your study area was in the 2 sub-districts. I don't know how big is it, but I think in Lampung the sub-district is quite big. It's supposed to be quite big. It's quite different with in Java when sub-district is quite small because of the high density population, while in the Sumatera or in Lampung it could be one sub-district is quite large compared to Java. So it could be that these diseases or the rain intensity or strong wind is only affected one place, not another, or only affected several farmers groups, but not the other. Then, if it is not random or it is not all farmers are affected, then I think it will also have some implication on the result of your study. Again, RCT, this is the real experiment in the field is quite difficult. We try to control a lot of things, but we always have a lot of things that miss. But yeah, I think it should be considered. And then this is I only take one table here, so you take the result of the interaction effect here. That's the training. So you have the effect of training before and after the training was held, so 2013 and before 2013. So here the effect is significant for agroforestry crops, which is negative here. And then, so I think this is the difference effect of training participation before and after, right? So it's like a DID, something like that. Yeah, somehow it's a similar explanation like that, right? So there is minus, so the crop, the agroforestry index by category is decreasing. Yeah, after the training.
Right,
yeah. Yeah, this is significant here. Right? Yeah, it's significant.
Oh, that's for the
yeah, and then you try to include the low income here, and then so the difference effect of training participant between poor and non-poor participant. So this is the between poor and non-poor. So the difference is 0.4. Yeah. So the poor are more benefited from the program. I think in terms of the agroforestry index by category. So I think it's the different angle how to interpret the interaction. It's also relevant for the another table for the income. Yeah. So I think it's also. So here the message is that the training is you expect that the training will have a different effect between poor and non-poor, and then you prove it that there is a difference between poor and non-poor, and the impact for poor is better, yeah, than the non-poor. So the program could be at the end. The program could be redeployed, especially for the poor farmers, and also link the CV, yeah, the conditional variation.
Yes.
Where the non-poor is more smooth, yeah? the income vulnerability is more smooth. Yeah? So I think it's also a good point for the inclusivity. Yeah, thank you. I think that's all for.
Thank you so much, Pak. I think I actually agree with most, if not all, of your comments. And yeah, I just try to look at this one by one about the governance program in the area. So we're trying to sort of align what the government have. So before we came to the field, we actually asked the government, so what are the things that you've done before but doesn't work? And then, so they mentioned like agricultural technology, composting, fertilizer, even though it's subsidized, no one's doing it. Doing some pest management, chemical pest management. People say that, yeah, chemical fertilizers, like they have to use less, but they use more. So we're trying to, so in that way, this program is actually some of the extension of the government program, which we try to promote agroforestry, but still through extension officials, but still, yeah, some people do, some people don't. So we're here to accelerate the impact. And yeah, and I also agree that there is some variation to it, right? when you look at the even for this agroforestry, it's very local based. I think maybe also the reason why people don't adopt, because they don't have forest, like they're far from the forest, or they're like located in a more populated area that don't have, so there's this local variation, which we actually try by controlling with the village fixed effects and farmers group fixed effects in addition to the household fixed effects, so we were trying to capture that. And also about the situation on the crop diseases and high rain intensity and strong wind, because we have the year, we also have the year, right, and year dummy, and then I think we got it like in the 2003 or 2004. That's actually declining. So I think that's part of this, and it's not random. I agree. So I think one way to look at it is just to control for the altitude. That's one thing. Which we have in data, and which we also have the GIS allocation of each household, which I think we can also control, but sadly we don't do it here because economists maybe they care about all of this, the ID and all the stuff, so they sort of forgetting about the ecology. Yeah, and I actually agree with you that I also want to say the category, actually the poor also increase significantly by the category. But the effect is so small, like 0.004, so that and the referee decided that it's not significant. So I have to remove, it's not really, it's too small to be claimed. It's too strong if we claim it as a significant effect, so we left it. So sometimes we have to fight. So, and I think based on this, yeah, so I think I really got the very nice comment, and I think we can do something in the future. Yeah, with all this comment incorporated, we can have maybe some other output based on this one. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ronnie, Pak Ahmad, Ibu Anis, very fruitful discussion, yeah. Excellent presentation. Also, now big round of applause for the speaker. Now we have two sessions of question. For the first round, maybe I will invite 3 questions. Yeah. Raise your hand and introduce yourself. Bangga, silakan kalau ada yang ingin bertanya. Boleh bahasa Indonesia kan Pak Firman ya? Boleh. Boleh ya. Mohon izin untuk dari floor mungkin ada yang ingin disampaikan pakai bahasa Indonesia, silakan kalau ada yang ingin bertanya. Silakan. Atau mungkin boleh. Ya silakan. Ian ya, ini mahasiswa. Ian silakan.
I have 2 questions regarding your presentation. Actually, the first one is similar to our home regarding whether agroforestry training promote income equality, but it's already answered. So the 2 questions are, at the beginning of your presentation, you show that there have been the intervention by the government in promoting agroforestry training. And my question is, how does agroforestry training compare to those agroists in increasing income quality? Is it better in increasing income quality with more farmers than the past intervention regarding agroforestry in that community? And then your study mainly focuses on the community that they main focus on crops is coffee and cocoa. Do you have any prediction whether the agroforestry training will perform better or not in other communities that focus on other type of crops? Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Maybe next question. Maybe you can.
Sorry. So the first question is similar to what?
So I had 3 questions.
question?
First one is actually similar to Ahmad, so only two questions.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah, so about the government past intervention, there are three, right? In Aceh, in what I can, I think, it was many times. I mean, it was long time ago, so I have to admit that I have a vague, I have a vague memory of all the detail of the paper. But the thing is that they focus on a specific crop, and then they measure whether it increases adoption, and that's it. And as far as I know, why I'm doing this is that what I'm doing all this stuff until the end, until the income volatility, is that some studies are assuming that it is, but they don't really examine in detail in a very rigorous approach about the connection between agroforestry and income volatility. So what I can say is that I don't think they go to the income smoothing way from that studies. So that's why, so they focus on whether they plant, and then they plant, and the land rehabilitation, yes, it is, then that's it, I think. So, but I will check again about that, and maybe if you have reference, we can check together. Yeah, and the second, coffee and cocoa. I think coffee and cocoa is particularly very relevant to agroforestry, because I think the prerequisite of having coffee and cocoa is to have a very strong trees, as a shade trees, to cover the coffee and cocoa. But for other type of commodities, I'm actually not sure. Maybe if it's something like that needs shade trees, or maybe it will work if you can combine those with the trees. But for other like palm oil, I'm not sure about other commodities. Yeah, maybe we can do something in the future. We can check for other commodities. Thank you.
The further hypothesis could be different with other agro environment.
Yes.
The behavior of the farmer itself toward the ecology. Because again, in the position of farmers' behavior adapting to the agroecology, usually is a factor of their coping mechanism toward their environment, and also their perceived belief and their position of what they're doing on their land in terms of overall portfolio. I think you should check again. Because the Agroforestry program in terms of related to the land that you mentioned before, usually it's become the land distribution mechanism done by the Ministry of Forestry to engage the community surrounded to reforest them, but more in the more commercial approach other than this pure ecologist kind of. I think I returned it to the
yang baru responnya. Kemudian mungkin ada dari floor, ada lagi yang ingin ditanyakan sebelum kita makan siang. Sebelum kita makan siang. Oke ya, mungkin atau mungkin ada yang ingin ditanyakan secara tertulis, boleh. Saya ada memberi kesempatan 2 menit. Kalau untuk ada yang tidak ingin berbicara di forum, tapi boleh ada. Mungkin kalau tidak ada ya saya kembalikan ke MC ya. MC once again, big applause for our excellent
Okay, thank you very much for Bu Ayu and Discussants, Pak Ahmad and Pak Ronnie. Also, thank you for Bu Pipit for nice presentation and nice. And I think we are moving to next agenda. Okay, actually we will give about plakat, but I think we will wait for Padjadjaran. Or we can go to next agenda for our audience and also for speakers. We are very pleased to get a lunch in behind of you. And outside in our left side, in my left side, you are very pleased to get your lunch. Okay. We are going to.
Ada memento yang kenang-kenangan itu.
Okay, now for the now we are going to Padjadjaran, please go to stage to give souvenir from FEB Unpad to the all speaker for Bu Ayu, Pak Ahmad, and Pak Ronnie. Also, please go to front and also Bu Pipit. First, Bu Ayu.
Thank you.
And for our discussants, Pak Ronnie. And next for next discussion, Pak Ahmad Komarulzaman. And as for our moderator, Ibu Pipit Fitrian. I think for we going to photo sessions with Pak Firman and also speakers discussing the project.
Oh yeah.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Terima kasih banyak.
Okay, I think this is the end for our today's seminar. Thank you for your attentions and your attendees. Also, thank you for Indonesia projects. We hope we can see you again in the next BIES Dialogue and Forum. I think that's all. Thank you. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.